I've been thinking about Bentonville for 2+ years in my head, just being like, what the was that place? Just completely different from what I thought it was going to be.
Look around a city and you'll see a multitude of stories waiting to be told, but you might not realize just how complex and layered the explanation is. Join our motley cast of urban dwellers and planners as we research, question, and sometimes fall deep down a rabbit hole. I'm Ellen.
I'm Matt.
I'm Tess.
And I'm Zach.
And this is Multi-Story.
Today, Matt has a little story to tell us about a place in our very own Midwestern United States. It's time to get back to our Midwestern roots and see what's happening a little closer to home, at least for you guys.
I think you guys are going to find this to be more interesting and complex than maybe you would first expect. It is kind of mysterious because if you were to say there is a town of just over 50,000 people that has these kind of amenities, it would be quite mind-boggling to figure out how that came to be. And it's a pretty obvious answer. But yeah, 54K residents. They've got an art museum designed by a star architect, Moshe Safdie, $1.7 billion in assets, huge collection. It's expanding. They've got another art space that's a performance center. It's an adaptive reuse, really cool urbanism stuff that we've seen in other big cities. It's the so-called mountain bike capital of the world. It's got 70 miles of bike trails within the city limits and another 400 in the region. It feels like a city when you're there. You're in a traditional town square kind of vibe, but there's third wave coffee. Is that the wave we're on the coffee? There's nice restaurants. There's all these amenities.
Like coffee and feminism are waving together, so I think, yeah, it must be third wave.
It's like first they gave coffee the right to vote, and now coffee is like in the workforce. Yeah.
Yeah. The webinar is now about coffee and feminism. Nice to have the urban angle, but
I didn't really understand the assignment, so yeah, it went all over the place.
good job, Matt.
So here's a look at this place. This town has that classic square. It's a prototypical small town, the likes of which any Midwesterner will recognize. It's the courthouse in the middle with a square of retail around it, and almost all the examples you can think of as a Midwesterner are dying towns because companies built stores out at the edge of town, teaser, and all the retail's hollowed out and the population is left. The plant closed back in the 50s and the jobs are gone and everyone moved to the big city. So what is this mysterious place? If you haven't determined it yet, is Bentonville, Arkansas. This is Bentonville from when I was there. It was First Friday when we rolled up into town. So they had a street festival. There's a lot of people there and they're walking on a closed street. This is something you would expect in a larger place, maybe. There's a town square. They had a concert going on for the First Friday weekend. It was crowded and beautiful and the weather was really nice. What's interesting about this place is it is weirdly multicultural for such a small city. Here's a headline. Obviously, this kind of teases the reasons why. But they play like a regular cricket match there. When you walk around the square in Arkansas, you're seeing a lot of diversity and different kinds of people. It's also interesting because you feel like you're in a city, but you see kids and families. And unfortunately, as an American urban dweller, you don't really see kids in urban spaces. They're in the suburbs. Families in the larger cities tend to move out, or at least move outside the downtown core areas. So the fact that there were kids riding their bicycles downtown, there were families and strollers and cargo bikes and multiple generations. You see the old timers, you see the kids kind of on their own. You see that in a way that downtown's cores in the larger cities are mostly young people before they've moved to the suburbs to make their families or empty nester types. You are reminded you're in a different kind of place when you see some of this stuff. It's also really interesting tension because Arkansas is a pretty poor place and the Northwest Arkansas region is a very rich place. There's a huge number of folks in Arkansas who are struggling to make ends meet, whereas there are folks making six figures pretty regularly, and there's a lot of million-dollar houses in Northwest Arkansas. So it's kind of a microcosm of late-stage capitalism. So why is this place so nice? Why is it attracting so many people? Well, it's got some nice amenities for a small town of 50,000. This art museum that we mentioned, designed by Moshe Safdie, it's a free museum. It's currently expanding, but it's 200,000 square feet on this massive grounds. And Moshe Safdie, for Kansas Cityans, he designed the Performing Arts Center. He's got this sort of style that's really beautiful. And this is built into this ravine creek bed. The children used to play in that we're going to get to. The main characters in this drama used to play in this area that the family owned, this 120 acres. There's a creek running through, and they basically built it right into the ravine and made it feel very natural. And the collection is extraordinary at this museum. I just want to point this out because I went to the museum, and Rosie the Riveter became war propaganda, but this is the original painting. And
She's a
if you look
badass.
closely, she's a badass. I think this is way cooler than the one that turned out to be the one we kind of are used to. So the beautiful thing about this museum is it is a 1 mile walk. So when Softy designed it, he designed it with the idea that you could walk there and you can arrive there in a really dramatic fashion. And that really creates a weird kind of small town American downtown where you don't expect to be able to walk to really any amenities outside the square. But you can see from the town square on this map, it's about a mile walk. And it's a really nice walk that they've been really intentional. You can see it's via the art trail.
That's an uncommon sensitivity for star architect installations. Normally they're very self-referential and self-important. The idea that something sits in a context as wide as an entire city is refreshing.
Yeah, it's nice that, architects think about context instead of just their building in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
This is all very adjacent to all the amenities. Zach, you mentioned the 21st museum there.
Architects.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's where we didn't stay with our small children.
Yeah, that would be it's a very nice art gallery museum as well. And then next to that is a fountain and grounds and botanical gardens, and then you go into the trails. It's quite lovely. How does a small town do it? I don't know. These are the things you encounter on the 1 mile walk: sculptures, flower gardens. This is the pond and the stream that come through, and they've got these chrome balls in there that are really compelling. One of those spiders like we have in Kansas City. We have
Okay, I thought it was familiar. Cool.
So sculptures all over the 120 acre grounds. These are just the ones you encounter on the way. And you will arrive in a very nice fashion. An extension of the Crystal Bridges Museum. This is just on the east side of the kind of center of the old downtown area. An old craft cheese factory that they adaptively reused into a performance and exhibit space. There was a rock and roll photography exhibit in there. They call it the momentary because everything is fleeting, and they do temporary exhibits that are only there for the moment. And you can see there's the tower. That's my photo from the inside. On top of that, there is a glass wrapped cocktail bar where you can see views of the whole town. And this, a rooftop bar in a town of 50,000. What are we doing here with $12
We're living.
signature cocktails?
We're living.
We're living. This does not compute with the town of 50,000. So the bikes, it's very much a recreational and not transportation bike focused, although the Razorback Trail does go all the way through the region and connect all the towns. But there are hundreds of miles of mountain bike trails, and people pilgrimage from all over to go ride mountain bikes here. And they've sort of created elevation because it's not really in the mountains, it's in the Ozark foothills. But these trails are putting this region on the map. You can see this is a New York Times headline, how an Arkansas city became an epicenter of the biking world. It's impressive when you walk around, just everybody's in their Lycra and getting their coffee before they go out to the woods. Because again, the trails are connected to downtown. So people can go to the coffee shop and then they're off to the trails.
And whatever is happening to those 3 cyclists in your photo.
Yeah.
They are jumping off of a ramp. So there's a whole mountain bike resort / campground.
Okay. This is like
in Northwest Arkansas.
The full ET experience.
Yeah.
They're not.
This photo is from a resort. They've got coffee shops that are trailside that are not drive up, they're bike up. They've got campgrounds. It's pretty crazy, and people come for that.
I want to say, when I visited, I was, walking around feeling frustrated and disappointed in my lack of ability to bike anywhere. I didn't have a mountain bike. I had, my road bike with the trailer for the kids. I ran into a friend there who was staying in the campground. And this is the way to do Bentonville if you are interested in cycling, because he was staying and he had his kids there. He had brought mountain bikes, and I think it's called Kohler is the name of the campground that they were staying at. And they have the bike up coffee where you can bike there, and you can't get there via car. It's all in the trails. And you can bike around all of these trails, and you can get to the museum, you can get to downtown on the trails. That's the way to do it, not trying to stay in a hotel and bike around the city, because you can't really bike around the city. The cycling infrastructure is all geared towards the mountain biking and the people who are visiting the town in order to stay in the campgrounds and do this mountain biking.
Yeah, even on the walk to the museum, you like look to your left and there's like someone flying over some berms, and then you look to your right and someone's up on the ridge, like
Oh,
like
wow.
mountain bike trails everywhere. It's ever present everywhere you look. So why
Except in
is
the
it like
city.
this,
Yeah.
you guys? Yeah, except well, that I think that's changing. We'll
So
get to that.
one
Okay.
more bike thought. Say like here, for example, they have a bus you can take where they clear out a bunch of the seats, they put in racks, and you can put your bike on right up to the top of the mountain, and then everyone just leisurely bikes down back
That's
into
cool.
town. And I was wondering if something like that might have alleviated your frustration if there was a way to get you from the hotel that didn't have fragile art to the destination you wanted to go.
Yeah, I don't I just had the wrong idea about what this place was all about because I heard, think I read this article where it was a hub for cycling and epicenter of the biking world. Didn't say mountain bikes, so I showed up with my regular bike and thought I could bike around town. And it was not a good experience biking around town. And I think if you lived here and you wanted to do your life with a bike, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's all
And Tess,
recreation.
it's a good question because one of I think the growing pains is they're on the path to be over 1 million people in the region. And in my observation and limited research, I didn't really find much for transit service. Certainly not to cover the 40 miles from end to end or whatever of the region. So
My
it's
main
a huge limitation.
my main exposure to Bentonville is through Marley Blonsky, who I host the All Bodies on Bikes podcast with. She lives in Bentonville for this because it's
Oh,
so bike centric. But what you're describing, Zach, has been her experience too. Trail Network is good, and you can get around even kind of for some of her errands. But I can't remember the exact place in Bentonville, but she was describing the way that one of the bike lanes is set up is it's kind of like they maybe followed best practices, but they didn't actually pay attention to the way that traffic would interact with each other, like the way that bikes would interact with the cars coming in and out of a parking lot. So it's a bit of like they get it that they want to attract bike minded people and people who would be getting around on bikes, but they kind of aren't doing it in a truly connected way, which I think might be a bit of stealing the lead from Matt of saying like these, it's almost like two very distinct things happening. I think you already said this, right? It's a bit of like this is like an amusement park that happens to
yeah.
be near a small town that they could like improve upon to make their own.
It's almost like some rich people just wanted to play.
Oh,
And that takes us to Tom and Stuart Walton. They like bikes. They invested some $74 million of their family foundation money to build a bunch of trails because they like to ride on trails. And hey, how about that? Tom and Stuart, these are Sam Walton's grandkids. I'm sure most people know who Sam Walton is. So they talk about it being their passion, but obviously this is driven by them. A lot of it is because they like shredding mountain bike trails, and so that's what they built. You walk around town and you hear the joke like it's the best biking infrastructure money can buy because they really just threw money at it and built a bunch of trails. It wasn't like the
yeah.
Kansas City mountain bike community where there's a huge volunteer network. We have a really great network of trails maintained by volunteers, 3 or 4 miles at a time. They just built hundreds of miles between paved intercity trails and mostly mountain bike trails because those are cool and rad. And these guys look like they like rad trails.
And
Tom and Stuart.
I don't know that I can even confirm this, but even just like looking at this photo of who's building it and what you just described, don't know that I'd feel super comfortable that it's a diverse group of people who want to use this trail network, or it definitely looks like funded by the Middle-Aged Man in Lycra Foundation of Northwest Arkansas. Like, not actually sitting there saying, we would love to expand the world of cycling to be so inclusive and we want to introduce more people to it. It's more like, we just want to go down a mountain as fast as we can and we can build it.
Yeah, while I saw a lot of South Asian families enjoying the square, I didn't see a lot of South Asian families thrashing on the pump track in the mountain bike areas,
There
right?
you go.
So there is a question of like, who does this benefit? And especially
Yes.
with Zach's example, I can't take my kids on this. I mean, I think there probably are trails if you did the work to figure out exactly where you could go with your family.
Yeah,
but-
so
Right.
my friend I ran into, he had, a 5-year-old, and there were trails that he could do. There were the green trails, and think about the bunny slopes on a ski resort. It's kind of same thing, and it's free. So I don't want to be too harsh on who's using these trails because they are free and there are all different kinds of levels that you can access. It's just
Yeah.
not a city that you can bike in, which is what I thought it was.
And to be fair, there are inclusive groups in Bentonville who are trying to change the narrative, but they are not the people who said, let's turn Bentonville into mountain bike mecca.
Right. I mean, I love this quote from the New York Times article. Quote, "We never had a huge vision like this. We just never stopped." It's not like
There you
they
go.
were being super strategic about transportation or climate change, or they're just like, we really like riding bikes, bro. Let's build some trails. I mean, I might be not giving them enough credit. I didn't watch every interview or whatever, but that's kind of the impression. And yes, going around town, there's a lot of dudes that look like this.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then the other reason we have all these nice things is Alice Walton, Sam Walton's daughter, really likes art. She had been amassing a collection her whole life with her riches, and now she has a place to put it. And so she is the one that led the Walton Family Foundation's effort to develop the museum. These three characters basically are the reason we have these amenities that seem quite extraordinary for a town of this size.
And when you describe it like that, it does make it feel a bit more like you just happen to like Bentonville is just the Walton estate and you happen to live there.
Yep. You're getting to the heart of the question too, because
Oh,
what does this mean? It's a great place, but what does it mean when you're at the whims of
right.
a one family that does whatever they want and is, again, not building it as strategically as maybe you would want?
Okay.
I will say, though, the results of the investments that the family has made obviously have reaped huge benefits for the city. Here's just a few cool things I've noticed. This is my hotel. There's a bike valet at my hotel because
Nice.
everyone's coming, bringing their bikes. Those are pretty common all over the city. This middle photo is on the way to the art museum. This is just like new apartments with a single track mountain bike trail entry right there next to the apartments going into the woods. You just see these little touches everywhere. And what I thought was really cool, I'd never seen free app-based bike parking, so you don't have to carry your own bike locks. A lot
That
of
is
like
cool.
bike-centric cafes and stuff, you could bike up and lock your bike. I'd never seen something like that, I don't think, at the scale that I saw. They're all over. Although what you also find in Bentonville is it's such a rich and fancy community that a lot of people just leave their bikes unlocked. You see unlocked $3,000+ mountain bikes leaning against windows everywhere.
You heard it here
So
first.
that's right. Go steal bikes in Bentonville, everyone.
Bentonville, ready for bike theft.
It's not just because they're wealthy, right? There are certain safety in numbers. Like every city that has bikes everywhere has bikes left out everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like you can't steal them all, right? So let's look a little bit about how Bentonville is transforming. I went back on Street View, one of my favorite pastimes. So this is where I stayed, my sort of Japanese-inspired small room hotel concept. This is what was there just, I think, 4 years ago. Now that's the hotel.
Oh my.
This is about 2 blocks south of the square. Here is across the street from my hotel. This is an old retirement or nursing home situation. Now there's this building. This building's got like a co-working space in it, a coffee shop on the ground floor. What's interesting is that you can see these ramps. You can ride your bicycle up to the top of this building. It is integrated into the whole bike culture so that there is a...
But you can't. Can you get there on a
Yeah.
bike lane though?
Good luck getting there. That
You
was under
can't?
construction when I was there. And yeah, there's like no way to get there.
I mean, I will say a lot of people just ride on Main Street in
Sure.
mixed traffic, but I don't think there is a bike lane to get there. But it is very popular. People going up there all day and night. I could see this out my hotel window, and it's quite whimsical. And some major corporations have a presence there, and then like a very trendy co-working space, and everything is in this. Where there was this low density nursing home, for a community that's aging, that's the kind of infrastructure you need. And now you have this. Here is a location about a block northwest of the downtown square. Here's what that looks like now.
Ooh.
Like standard strip mall with a parking lot in front. This is
Architects
interesting,
rendering
like,
any building built in the late 2000s.
it is of a certain sort, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is 2 blocks north of the square. You can see these sort of like single structure pretending to be multiple structure row house type things.
Yeah,
So they're
pretending
trying
to be
create-
old.
Yeah, they're trying to create urbanism and a sense of place anew that is
Interesting.
not real.
I'm okay with it.
That was a cute little house.
Like, I hate this, and we'll get to it at the end. Typically, the word character is something that like NIMBYs use to oppose all development and change. But I do think that there is some level where you can actually argue, do you strip all the character out of place? I mean, I think this is great. It's getting more density and opportunity around all the amenities that are in the center city that people can walk to or bike to. But also, they're not building out where folks with limited income are getting in there, right? It's quite the opposite direction.
All the trees are gone. So it's kind of like, it looks like it would fit, but it is out of place because if those had been built when that house was built, at least 100 years ago, you think? Like the trees would still be there. So it's kind of like,
I mean,
it fits, but it doesn't.
Cities are dynamic though, right? If they're not changing, they're dying. And of course, a giant corporation with thousands of high-paying jobs, world-class recreational amenities, arts and cultural institutions are going to drive growth in a city. And wouldn't you rather see it around the downtown than sprawled out among the Ozark Hills? I think so.
It would.
Because it does have that too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think once your city starts building, not that attractive housing stock like this, you've really made it. I'm being serious. This is what we're missing.
Yeah,
in
I
most
agree.
of our cities.
I mean, the fake cornices are quite something, but
Once
I
you
guess they're
build for
real.
quantity,
They're
not quality.
The fact that they can
But
build
it's
this
got-
here and it's not, it's not a high rise and it's not a single family house and
Sure.
it is this, I think this is what we need more places.
Yeah. I mean, I think
They
if
did
we're
distress the brick to make it look old.
if we're talking about street trees and siding finishes and cornices, we're kind of missing the point of what's going on in Bentonville. That's small potatoes compared to the big questions about what it means for how the city's growing and what its soul is and is going to be.
Yeah, I don't really
Yeah,
care
100%.
what they glue on the outside of the box,
Fair enough.
whether it looks old or
Yes, they
not.
don't have. So this is the other side of the strip mall. This is kind of the other side of that complex. This structure you see behind the one immediately in front of us is a parking garage. So typically, good urban design would be put your parking garage behind or wrapped by your retail. This is a neighborhood market from Walmart. They put the Walmart neighborhood market in the middle, like inside the parking garage, and then the street level on all sides is the parking garage. It's just like the opposite design, and it just kind of shows you a lack of sophistication. Okay, well, we put a parking lot in front of the store. We can do a multi-layered parking lot in front of the store, but it's still very Walmart. Here's quaint Petticoat Lane. This is a block north of the Walmart neighborhood market. Here's Petticoat Lane today, vacated, and a corridor. It's interesting if you walk through here, the city just ends. It's just like a sea of parking lots and the small town water tower at the other end of this corridor. So it's a very interesting city in quick transition. There's hard edges. Okay, so why did all this happen? Who are these Waltons? A quick and boring history. They just happen to be from there. Sam Walton worked for J.C. Penney. He came back and bought a Ben Franklin department store location on the square. You can see that in my photo here during First Friday festivities. Walton's Five and Dime. He got frustrated that he wasn't able to discount enough, so he said, screw this. I really want to discount. That's my strategy. He said it was he was a crusader for the consumer. Some might say he was trying to destroy everyone else, but they opened the first Walmart in 1962 in Rogers, which is one of the other cities in the metro. So that's because of circumstance and history and birth. These folks just happen to be in Bentonville, and that's why it's here. So this Walmart money, what does it mean for a beautiful little downtown to be made so idyllic by Walmart money when Walmart is the very symbol of terrible real estate practice and the height of suburban development? The left is indicative of Walmart's tendency to change their formats and just leave empty real estate. There are tons of these empty Walmarts or, Spirit Halloween stores all over American small towns with all the infrastructure that went into building them that sit empty. And then the right photo is just Anytown USA Walmart store. Huge. This is actually a more attractive version of a Walmart store. They've ornamented it.
Isn't that like their neighborhood
Again, we're not
market? Like they're trying to kind of blend in a little bit more versus big box.
But they're massive stores with huge dedicated infrastructure. Usually they have dedicated retention ponds because their parking lots are so huge. They have freeway exits dedicated to them. Huge amount of infrastructure that the city has to pay for to host a store like this. Naturally, this has emptied out all the retails on the town squares in the center of the city. The strategy very much was to target small towns of the size of Bentonville and similar that had some maybe neighborhood retail and just go in and suck all the retail out and undercut the competition. So there is an entire Wikipedia article, if you care to read it, called Criticism of Walmart. I just excerpted a couple of the headlines here. So what is the history of Walmart in Bentonville? They started there. They grew into a huge multinational corporation. Sam Walton's ethos was always to be like super efficient. So he bought like crappy real estate that was ugly. Everything has to be cheap. Their current home office is in an old warehouse kind of thing next to a arterial and a very unattractive Everytown USA suburban strip. Because they're so big, it has grown with, if you ever bike around the region, you see marketing agencies, you see offices for all their suppliers, the big multinational corporations that make consumer brands all have a presence here to be close to Walmart because it's such an important channel to them. They're starting to consolidate all their remote offices in Texas and other parts of the country to Bentonville. So they're bringing in a lot of talented folks from all over the country. The only place they still have an outpost is in Silicon Valley because their Walmart.com and their digital efforts, they think they need that presence out there. That is changing though. Sam Walton is rolling around in his grave, his discounted, keep everything cheap. This is the new Walmart campus. It is intended to attract talent in a way that we talk about in cities and the creative class and all those things. It's the anti-Walmart ethos of what our biases would be about what Walmart means. And I went through this. It's currently under construction. The first employees are starting to move into it, and it is nice. The other thing that's nice about it when we talk about urbanism and city design is that it is about a mile and a half from downtown. So you can see this aerial. It is a little bit sprawly and suburban, but it is also connected by protected cycle track all the way from the city center to the campus. And it is, I think, intended to be reached not necessarily by people driving, although, of course, there are giant parking garages all over it. So Walmart has obviously had a huge impact on communities. It's accelerated their decline. It's emptied out their downtowns. Maybe the death of small town downtown was inevitable with globalization and scale and economies of scale and late stage capitalism. And I'm curious what you all think about that in terms of like, how much do we blame Walmart for taking advantage of a phenomenon in the post-war suburbanization of America that would have happened anyway? I joked, I'm going down on a cultural reparations tour of the Walton family, where they spent all of their dirty money to try to make a nice place to make up for all the places they destroyed. But it's one place in one town in one corner of America, and the rest of America needs to suffer because of its presence. Too much?
No.
You know what I was surprised by?
Just enough.
Is you got Walmart just sucking up everything from all over the country. And I'm just surprised it wasn't better, that Bentonville wasn't better than it was. They had this whole bike thing going and know how to build bike infrastructure. It's, they could have asked an urban planner to design bike infrastructure that would fit with their city. And it's just completely non-existent. So I found that surprising. They are making good pedestrian infrastructure improvements with the new development, mostly, driven, the developers are putting it in. It's not very connected, I found. And if they want to just have a more walkable city, I think that's great. Not every place has to be a cycling utopia, but when that whole thing is you're a cycling utopia, it's surprising that they had not apparently put no thought whatsoever into cycling infrastructure in the city. Maybe that's changing with the cycle track out to the new headquarters, but I found it lacking. The fact that if this is where all of the retail, the small scale retail, all the small towns went to improve this city, it was surprising it wasn't better.
It's not surprising to me because Walmart is not a company that provides urban planning services. So what have they done?
Right.
Right. The reason that all of those negative impacts that Matt mentioned occur to those towns is because Walmart doesn't need to consider those. Those are external to its business operations, right? It goes into those towns, it gets more sales, it gets more business, it thrives, so it can do that. In Bentonville, these types of considerations are internal to its operations. It needs to attract high quality employees, it needs to create an environment that those people want to work. The company has a motivation to create just as much and spend just as much as they need to in order to create an image of a place or an experience of a place that will attract and retain that talent. It's not their interest, and it's not really their job to connect the bike lanes. It's their interest in their job to attract and retain talent. And if their city has a reputation as a mountain biking mecca or as a cultural gem in the heart of the Ozarks, that's enough to get people to want to go there and live there and work there.
I guess I want to challenge the idea that they're going to retain their workforce, because that is where, like what you described, I agree with, Tess, like to where they have a vested interest to make Bentonville somewhere that you want to live and that is pleasant to stay. But won't it start to feel a bit like the Truman Show, where like there is a border to this utopia? Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas is not very well connected to the rest of the world. So like if we can contain our workers into this little manufactured space, is that going to be enough for them to be fulfilled for their like professional lifetime before they go retire somewhere? And I think that's what's like popping out to me about all this, is that it is so manufactured that it's
but compared
not.
to what though? Every random suburban USA, anywhere USA, is also contrived and manufactured and self-contained, but it's not as fun. It's the relative. I think there's a relative competitiveness there. I think there's another
But there was
aspect to this
still,
too.
I think there was still a more organic development of the suburbs that you just described versus what Bentonville is, which is like, kaboom, we are going to make this now.
I think a lot of the critiques that all of you were mentioning in terms of the change that was happening in the city and the types of development, you could pick any major and thriving city and find a point in its history where wealthy boosters were driving its growth. I mean, Kansas City is a major city because politically corrupt operatives outmaneuvered St. Joseph and wherever to get a railroad bridge, right?
Sure.
Like we could have had this same story about how all sorts of cities grew in that moment where they pivoted from a place that was serving a local or regional populace in a limited way to a place that had a larger footprint and had a larger interest and had a larger dynamism. We can critique the growing pains, but every famous city's art museum, or like look at a Carnegie Library, look at all of the rich benefactors on opera houses and art museums in major cities around the country. If you're cynical, you can think of it as like a whitewashing of their exploitative collection of riches. That's how they're giving back in a way that they can choose to, where they choose to. I don't think it's an uncommon story. It's just one you're witnessing firsthand in a place that is still in the process of growing.
It's just interesting that you characterize it as like a Walmart effort to make it a nice place to work. And it's really like the heirs that are not so connected to the business anymore, who
I
really
would agree
just
with
want
that.
it to be a nice place to live, or they want their toys.
I was going to say
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a nice place to play. It's,
Right.
are the two grandsons living in Bentonville? Are they visiting
think so.
Bentonville a lot? Okay, like, and I'm making a lot
I
of
mean, I think there's
assumptions,
a
but
couple of
it's
different things. Like the fancy campus is obviously, if you want to attract someone away from a dynamic and diverse and exciting city to the middle of Arkansas, it can't be to a junkie warehouse, right? We live in a world where people can work remote, where there's a lot of flexibility, where employment is much less tethered to place. We've talked about that in other episodes. And so if you want to attract someone somewhere, you need a campus like that. I agree, like a lot of these are sort of just vanity projects if you're cynical, or a giving back to the place that raised and supported them, right. I think there's a more generous read on this as well. What they've done is just allow the oligarchs in their benevolence to choose where and how and what gets invested in. And if there's a critique of the lack of strategy or the lack of connectivity or the lack of connection to public interest beyond the vanity and interests of this particular family, let's think about what a proactive and strategic city could do with all of those resources that were invested into a public space, but rather than just at the whim of an individual family, done in coordination with the broader public benefit. To me, that's sort of the button you could press to sort of switch this from a caricature of a livable city into an actual livable city. Instead
And
of
that's
depending on these tens of $1 million investments, these families were just taxed in a way that those same resources could be collected and allocated in a way that benefited the city. You could see something different. It wouldn't necessarily be better, though, right? It has the potential to be much better. It has the potential to be much more democratic, but it's not guaranteed to be better.
Yeah, the cities that you referenced before, it's like they've always had a significant investment. Yes, but this to me feels so much like that oligarchy development of it. And so I think if what you just described were to happen, it would likely develop in a more human way, which is, kind of not fair to say that the Waltons just truly are extra human, but that it would be a bit more of like, okay, you have attracted a population that you do expect to grow. Is what you're doing actually reflect what that population would want in order to stay and thrive instead of just work there until they are 45 and go to the next thing?
Yeah, I don't think the planning department had any public meetings about any of these plans,
Right.
But I mean, I guess that's the theme of Tess and Zach's comments that I'm hearing is like, people built stuff, but they didn't build capacity, right? Like they didn't build a functioning local government with a good planning department designing really good bike infrastructure that's coordinated and connected. They built a trail network that they could play on. And so now can they go back and build, in probably a more progressive region, but still a conservative place, actually build public infrastructure to make it truly nice and serving the public in a more broad way than toys.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that you are judging Bentonville against a standard which never really existed. And if you look at any of the cities you love, they had periods like this. If you look at how and where and by whom these cities were founded, we did an episode about the history of the grid and the extreme commercialized and exploitative nature of the founding and development and growth of all of these major cities. I think you can argue that Bentonville seems pretty benign in comparison to places to which are now deemed diverse and special and historic.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this will become, when all this is washed over,
And
a real
I can see
a real
that.
city.
I can see your point, Tess, about this is just a dot on the timeline. It's not the end of Bentonville. It's not like everything stops and this is like what you're getting graded on. I think what I'm thinking more towards, if the trend continues of how they're building it, it won't be sustainable because it's not actually taking the residents' views in mind. It's just plopping things in, saying, deal with it. And even to the point where one of the things that's come across my Insta algorithm, since I do know people who live there is a mural in town. I think it's all bikes welcome or all bikers welcome. And the city council is trying to block it or trying to get it like painted over. So if things are funded and plopped, but then the residents don't actually like it, now you have a conflict that now you're starting to see like the people who actually live there didn't want it that way, and they do still have some power because this isn't actually an oligarchy. And so what are
It does
you
feel like
what
they
are you
kind of signed up
creating?
for it though, right?
I mean,
Like-
yes.
If what they're plopping down is, a world-class art museum that's free to the public and trails that are public infrastructure and free to the public, and it's spurring development and housing. I don't know. It's hard for me to, again, be too critical about that.
I just think it's a slippery slope into what if they do eventually want to plop something that is controversial. Like, I agree, right? I'm not going to argue with an arts museum. I'm not going to argue with bike trails, but I would argue with a nuclear power plant. But maybe they need that because Walmart's investing in AI. Like, when we need more power to the city. Like, what happens then?
I'd be pro nuclear.
Nuclear power is clean in the future, but
Yeah.
side
Okay,
note,
well,
different
sorry.
podcast.
But it still has the opportunity, like something you disagree
I mean,
with.
this is the trade-off for a society and system of government that under resources public institutions that could provide arts and cultural opportunities, recreation opportunities, civic opportunities, public infrastructure. That's the business of cities. And when they don't have the resources or capacity to invest in those, then the places that thrive are the places that get them through other means, like the random benevolence of a multi-billionaire.
The biggest thing is like we can't build anything, especially like modern progressivism. We're so sclerotic. All of these processes, all this public feedback. I wouldn't mind just a few things plopping in my community because it's so hard to do anything. But I mean, that has bigger implications for our whole system. It's like we only really build what rich people want to build
Right.
at their benevolence, to your point, Tess.
Right. And I guess this is coming from a perspective where discount retailers are less successful and cities are much more successful. And it's not a mystery why or how. It's because a lot of those externalized costs and impacts are internalized and recouped through regulation and taxation in the public interest that creates a framework in which you can have a high quality of life and have public investment at a higher level.
Yes. And even do you want Amazon or Walmart? Like I'm in a spot where I don't have to choose either of those because I'm close enough to a bigger city that you just described, Tess, versus a Bentonville or somewhere that is even more rural than that, where your option is Walmart or Amazon,
Right.
Delivery.
I also don't want to over nostalgize a small town America that was maybe never sustainable, right? Like the vast majority of those small towns in the Great Plains shouldn't be there. The aquifer's draining, it's not supporting agriculture, it's borderline desert land, and we've exploited it in a way that's unsustainable at a level of population that was unsustainable. And if those towns are shrinking in the long run for the planet and the society, probably that makes sense, right? It's not an inevitable good that you have to buy goods expensively and inefficiently and with a lack of variety and only at certain times of year, right? Like we can imagine a world that can justly provide those things. And part of the dynamism of cities is being able to adapt and evolve in a way that responds to new needs, new social norms, new technologies, new opportunities. I realize I'm coming across as like a Walmart apologist here, but like I don't think we can lay
Didn't have that on my bingo card.
the health of small town America. I think every criticism of Walmart was real and important, but those criticisms don't erase the desire for people to be able to afford clothes and food. Even if Walmart disappeared and never did those things, these places are going to be changing. They're going to need to be responding to new economies and logistics and global challenges. They're not going to be able to maintain the way they were forever. And which places are going to thrive? They're going to be the places willing to respond to these things, who have the strategy and foresight to attract and retain high quality workers, who find a way to invest in amenities and cultural institutions that enhance quality of life and make people want to live there. I think it's more complex than Walmart ruined cities and funneled money to their playground.
I will say, Tess, anytime you paint a picture of what the world could be, I'm ready to live in it. Like,
yeah, and then I have to say, but it's not possible.
I don't agree with that, Matt. I don't know. Like,
I mean, I don't really mean
okay,
it's
let
not
me
possible.
see. You definitely say it's not possible. You are ready to swoop in. Don't get me wrong. But
I don't mean it's not possible.
It's always like what you describe is, years and years and years of development in the future. But I agree with you. I do agree that there is a positive future that is possible. But I don't know that Bentonville was the way to get there. It's creating character, but I don't know that that is authentic, which people eventually snip out.
But Tess made the point, like, cities are dynamic and changing things. True. So what is authenticity?
And maybe
it's like you start to sound like a NIMBY pretty fast when you get into these kinds of vocabulary words, right?
Yeah. And to Tess's point,
Okay,
maybe it's is this good or bad? It's like maybe eventually it's like the people underneath the character turn over because it's like, well, I am drawn to the character. They are manufacturing, but that means that other people are opting out who had originally lived there. I like your idea, Tess, that it's all just part of what is going to happen next, but I don't know that I like it. Like I don't think I'm going to go live in Bentonville.
Maybe instead of Bike Mecca of Northwest Arkansas, the tourism office can say, come to a dynamic but complex growing city with multiple possible futures, which we are still trying to evolve as we navigate a economic system and government system which does not permit us to fully take advantage of the opportunities before us, but which we nevertheless exploit for the benefit of our residents.
I want to know what that
nice and
acronym
pithy
is.
As always, Tess.
Whoever does the
May it
edit for
please
this,
the-
can you just like put the letters on as Tess says them,
Yeah,
like as
Tess.
Tess says the words, and then we'll see if it makes a
Also, I would
like
amend
an
it and say,
acronym.
"May it please the Waltons."
Yeah.
I definitely have like an idealized, like when you walk in a town square and you have that human scaled retail, and you think like, oh, this town had 1,000 people in it, and people walk to the grocery store, and they walk to the shoe store. That's like ideal. And sure, they couldn't buy 52 colors of Chinese manufactured shoes, but they could buy a pair of shoes. And yeah, I probably discount like how much the way that could be worse because of the lack of choice and the cost. But also like there were good jobs in these towns. Part of this is like a make America great again, like bring the plant back in the town square retail. And like you have to embrace change, and part of that is small towns, even the ones that are healthy today, are full of like boutiques and candle shops. They're tourist destinations, and that's sort of what Bentonville is now. And they're trying to also be a place where people live and have everyday amenities. So is that possible? We'll see.
If they're expecting like 1.3 million or something like that, it's like a 3x growth. It's not insignificant what they're expecting
Yeah.
in that metro area in the next 25 years. If they're not developing smartly, they're about to have a big congestion problem if they do the typical Midwest thing of cars, cars, cars.
I mean, look at how Kansas City developed, literally putting houses on lime cliffs and then carving through them. And that's just the one that you all live in. Like every
But
place
they were
with
close to
growing,
downtown.
every place with growing pains is a total shit show. Every big city, every great city started as a shit show, a literal shit show with shit everywhere in the streets.
So I've been thinking about Bentonville for 2+ years in my head, just being like, what the was that place? Just completely different from what thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's so
there are many
weird.
places that are so weird.
It's not
I've never been to a
weird.
more
It's not
unbikeable
weird.
cycling
You
utopia.
you just think it's weird because nothing else in the Midwest is growing.
Shots fired.
Everything in Kansas City or Omaha or Little Rock or Memphis feels so calcified and locked in that a place that is different year to year, we're just in a cycle of
disagree.
civilizational decline where it feels weird because you don't see
We're growing at a
places
rate
growing.
of 1.8% or something. Come on.
Hard disagree.
I think it was
plenty of
just a
change.
difference between my expectations and the reality of
I
what
think
it
this
was.
is where I will once again say marketing solves everything, right? Like it shouldn't be billed as a biking utopia. It needs to be a mountain biking
Mountain.
holiday spot or something like that. Like don't show up thinking you're
mean-
just going to tootle around and never touch a car.
So then my response test is then it is weird because it is a city that is growing dramatically in the Midwest, and that is weird. It is a strange cultural mashup, the likes of which like there isn't a precedent for that I know of in the United States. With that like level of growth and weird like rural culture meets, South Asian immigrants.
I mean, okay,
Meets
Yeah, Tess.
lots of money.
Here's what's that town? Is it like Williston, North Dakota or whatever? I feel like this is the comparison. This is the Pier City comparison for Bentonville, right? It's oil boom. So it's in town with absolutely rapid growth, like 60,000 people a year, and everyone's living in double wide trailers because there's literally no other housing. There's no amenities. There's no infrastructure. There's no education. There's no quality of life. That has a similar level to growth as what you see in Bentonville. I feel like that is the pure comparison. Look at other cities growing like this and look at what they look like and feel like. And no one is taking bike trips to those places. People are going there to get a high salary and live in the rear bed of their pickup trucks for 2 years so they can go back to somewhere better.
It's interesting that as an example because that echoes the cynical take that you had earlier, Tess, because those towns are known for paying people like $250,000 because it's a terrible place to live and they're making tons of money. So maybe Walmart's just through the foundation making these investments in culture so they don't have to pay people to move to Bentonville.
They did pay people to move to Bentonville though. But
I know, but not
Also,
so much.
not that much, no. But I don't think that they're the same, though, Tess. Bentonville happens to have been able to absorb the growth because it's like being built as a tourism destination. And then they're like, oh no, people wanted to stay. Or Walmart is like, oh no, we want to bring people in to
Okay.
work and live here. Is it being
I mean,
like,
look at
we have something that we know is temporary and it'll shrink again? We'll check back in on Bentonville in 10 years and we'll see how our predictions or criticisms or cynicisms panned out.